Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aldas Kriauciunas. I'm the Executive Director of Purdue's MBA programs, and I'm happy to introduce one of our MBA alums, Peter Rusch. Peter will be joining today and answering your questions, along with my answering questions and reviewing our programs. Feel free, if you have questions, to ask them at any time, or we'll have time at the end as well for any questions you may have. So as you think about your MBA options, there's really three main categories. Certainly online programs are becoming more and more popular. The main drawbacks that we see to that is that you really have little to no interaction with your fellow classmates, and the rigor that may come from being able to challenge the faculty and your fellow students does not come through in an online format. The most common formats are an evening or weekend MBA, and they are what they sound like. You come together weekends or evenings. The main drawbacks we see to those programs are that people live in close proximity, so you don't have as much of diversity reflected in the classroom. And then second is that there's very little interaction outside of the classroom. People arrive right before classes begin and leave right when classes end. And so you may be in a class with many accomplished professionals, but you may not really have a chance to get to know them. So the residency format tries to bring together the flexibility of an online program along with the peer-to-peer learning that one expects to have on an on-campus format. And so in the residency, we come together less frequently, but when we do, it is for longer periods of time, 1 to 2 weeks at a time. So that when classes end each day, 4:30 or 5 o'clock, you continue to interact with your peers in the classroom, either through a case study, a project that you're working on, probably going out for dinner on occasion as well. And so that learning continues, and because we bring together accomplished people from around the world to be in the program, you're really learning from a diverse set of backgrounds. A quick overview of Purdue University. So Purdue was founded in 1869, so we're celebrating our 150th anniversary. Purdue is part of the Big Ten Athletic Conference, and so we have over 500,000 alumni around the world, close to 50,000 Krannert School of Management alumni, and about 3,000 Executive MBA alumni. So while your cohort may be 25 to 35 individuals, you're part of this much broader Purdue family. And also we have alumni chapters, 50 countries around the world, a number of U.S. cities and states, Indianapolis, where Peter is, and in many other places. And so you have that global reach through the Purdue family, Boilermakers as we call ourselves. While today we're focused on the EMBA program, keep in mind Purdue is a leader in over 200 different areas, be it in ag, be it pharmacy, veterinary care, engineering, technology, and many others. And so as a Purdue student, you have access to all these resources throughout the university. Purdue is certainly a well-known global brand. I travel a lot for my work, and I know Peter does as well. And so what I find is people either know Purdue or they know one of our most famous alumni on this slide, Neil Armstrong. So it's a great ability to have that connection. And so as we move forward today in our slide deck, the question we'll talk about are, who are your peers like? And Peter will talk about his cohort as well. Talk about the blended learning format because it is quite unique in the area of the Executive MBA program. And then we'll look at some next steps, how to work with your company for support, and how to join the program. So here we have a slide of just some of the companies represented over the past 3 years on a rolling basis. And the theme that hopefully jumps out to you is that there is no commonality across these organizations. We do have people from the military, as Peter was when he joined the program. We have universities, we have heavy manufacturing, high tech, not-for-profits, financial, oil and gas, and many others. And so because people, as I've mentioned, can come from anywhere, we do have this nice diverse range of backgrounds, and therefore that opportunity to be learning from these different companies represented in the classroom. Here I'll talk about a 3-year running average, and then Peter will talk a bit more about his own background and the cohort he was in. So in terms of work experience, we require a minimum of 5 years, no maximum. And we choose year 5 because that's the point we see people start having more management and or leadership responsibilities in their careers. And then having that people aspect in your career helps you, I think, better appreciate and gain from being in an MBA program. In terms of positions, it very much reflects the years of work experience from middle manager on up, with about 10% being entrepreneurs. In terms of industry, no one industry dominating, but it is a nice balance of different backgrounds that people bring to the program. And then finally, in terms of geographic background, about a quarter from the state of Indiana, a quarter international, and the rest spread throughout the United States. In the traditional MBA program that Peter graduated from, probably a bit heavier on the Indiana Midwest representation, and then our global executive MBA a bit more on the international side. So with that general overview, let's learn more about Peter, his background, and his cohort.
Okay, well, thanks, Aldas. I was a 2017 cohort graduate, and I was in the Navy from 2007 to 2016 active duty. And as I was going down my shore duty tour, I decided I needed to start to transition over from straight up military to the civilian side of things, because I wanted to start a family and kind of just turn the chapter in my life. So I started doing research, and I knew of the Purdue University's MBA program, and I started getting more information a couple years out. And the organization was really receptive to me, answered a lot of my questions, and it really fit the need that I had. I felt like, you know, I have an engineering background, I have a lot of leadership experience, a lot of international experience, and, you know, Purdue, growing up in Indiana, was a huge name for me. So I really wanted to be part of that network and part of that bigger picture. And it really fit the need for me. I thought that the cohort setup, being partially remote and then partially residency, was a good fit for me, because I was still serving on active duty. I was at U.S. Strategic Command for my last 3 years. So I started the program with the support of my command. I had the post 9/11 GI Bill for funding, and I was able to come on no-cost TDY orders to the residencies, and then I would be able to just fulfill my active duty responsibilities while working with my team at different hours of the day. We had folks from around the world involved with our cohort, so we had to make the timing work for all of our travel schedules and all of our different holidays, so to speak. If you're in a different country, they might have a different holiday schedule or things like that. So it was a great learning experience, and I can without a doubt say that the cohort setup in the MBA helped me change my mentality from strictly military to a broader understanding of business, and gave me a kind of a perspective on how to work with people in the civilian sector around the world.
So when you started the program, you were living where again?
I was in Nebraska in the Navy.
And then you moved to Indiana?
Yes, that's
during
correct.
the program.
That is correct.
And that's the one thing that we see as well, is many people starting on an MBA program, they're looking for that opportunity, either in your case of transitioning to civilian life and work, or it may be upward mobility, being moved to a different location for their company. And the aspect with the weekend and evening programs is if you get promoted and move to a different city, often you'll have to drop from the program. One of the great benefits of our format is that if you do get promoted and get moved, there's no reason to stop involvement in our program. So looking at the curriculum, this should look very familiar to Peter. So the curriculum for the Purdue Executive MBA, the traditional one and the global one, are quite similar. And we take the courses and divide them into 3 segments. The first are the functional courses that we have. And so those are the systems or functions that an organization needs just for its day-to-day activity. And it's fundamental for a general manager to understand them. The environmental, as we call them, courses bring in the environment, business, and or legal environment that firms are operating in. And then the integrative builds from the functional and environmental courses and adds an additional layer of concepts and theory. The integrative tend to be the most difficult because at that point you truly have to have that general manager understanding as an entrepreneur, strategic management, change management, understanding the different trade-offs, negotiations as well to understand the other person's perspective, which could be different from yours. And so these 3 different steps give you that general management understanding, try to make better decisions, pull upon the right people for a project, and or push back on the experts as well. So here we'll go through our blended learning format. I'll go through it and then ask Peter to comment on a few elements of how he found it, since it is a bit different than what most of us are used to when we think about an on-campus experience. So both of our executive MBA programs are 19 months from start to finish. We always begin with an orientation week here at Purdue, during which you meet the members of your cohort, of your first study team. I find people always remember their first study team, definitely. You learn about the technology that we use for all ebooks. We use Blackboard as our platform for content delivery. And then you take 2 classes for each of the courses of the first module. So very much an in-person introduction to the program. And that gives you really that knowing the faculty, knowing the staff, knowing your peers, really gives you that solid start so that you can succeed moving forward. After the orientation, people go home. They may fly, they may drive, as the case may be. And so the online or pre-residency is about a 10-week, 8 to 10-week period during which you're doing readings faculty have assigned, watching videos that faculty have created. You'll have individual and team assignments and get responses and feedback from faculty. And then you'll have typically a weekly team meeting, maybe twice a week, depending on the workload that you have. So some things in particular, it's not a self-study because you are interacting with your cohort and your study team. And you're paced in that there's assignments due typically every Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. But how you get through the work within each week is up to you. So online in our case means you don't have to log in every Thursday at 8 p.m. to listen to a lecture. Again, you have that flexibility to make it fit with your week-to-week schedule. With that pre-residency or foundation building portion completed, you come to campus, and so you build from what you've been doing in the pre-residency portion. You have your class sessions, and we'll look at our calendar here in a moment. Company visits, guest speakers, career management support, social events. I'm sure you did a basketball game when you get here. Right. Baseball or not? Start doing some baseball and bowling as well, and other events because, again, the unplanned interactions may be just as important as the planned interactions. After your 1 to 2 weeks on campus, you return home. You have 1 week to prepare for final exams, and then they're over a 9-day period. Here as well, they're asynchronous, meaning you choose when you take which of the exams on which days, so it has that flexibility for you as well. No more than 4 exams in any exam period. So sometimes people can't work on an exam on a work day, so you have a Saturday, Sunday weekend, 5 days, and then again a Saturday, Sunday. And that gives you that flexibility to go through the exams. When the exams are done, you have a 1-week break, and then you start the next pre-residency with new study groups. We in the program form the study groups to ensure that their diversity is balanced, because human nature is to form groups of people similar to yourself, right? But you're not going to learn so well from people with the same background, but you learn best from people with different backgrounds. And so we try to have you work with as many people as possible within the cohort during your time in the program. So that captures this uniqueness of the blended learning within the residency format. So a few questions for Peter. So talk about the pre-residency, how you worked through that, and how you made that fit with your schedule.
Well, the pre-residency, are you talking about here on campus the first week?
No, the before, after orientation.
Okay,
when you're at home.
Yeah, so that was where the rubber really meets the road, where you start to fully understand everything in the orientation when they told us about how you need to juggle your time and you need to be thinking about, where to stick different things. then you're suddenly doing it, and things make more sense. I need to do to learn. So someone can tell me things, and it intuitively makes sense, but suddenly, until I'm doing it, it's not really clicking. So the course material was coming at us very fast. I think most of the folks in my cohort found business analytics to be a really, really tough thing to get back into, even if we're a technology background. So that was in the first residency, or the first module. So we're trying to, number one, manage our personal life, manage our professional life, and now manage this whole other education aspect that we in the past only had focused on that. So time management was as big of a learning portion as the actual curriculum. So that I definitely felt. But the first module, baptism by fire, once we had that down, the second module was, okay, I understand this. I know what time I can do this. I know how to work with my cohort, and to be honest with them, hey, I have this going on. I can't do these times. A lot of people just sort of want to be overly nice and accommodating, but after the norming period, so to speak, of the group working together, you know that you can be, as long as you're honest and you want to work with other people and their problems as well, you can make that work very efficiently.
So how important are your peers to your success in the program?
They're the absolute pillar of how you can do in that program. You've got to be able to depend on them and be dependable to them.
Okay, awesome. And then let's look at the exam period then for a moment. So most people are used to going into some large lecture hall to take their exams. I'm sure that's what your experience was and mine. This is very different. So how did you manage the exam period?
So I looked ahead to see, okay, this is the exam period on my calendar. I know I've got family events. I know I've got work events. And I know how I'm doing in each class. I know I might need more time for this one, or I'm ready right now for this one. So my strategy was to take the one that I was immediately ready for, just as soon as it opened up, get that out of the way, and then sort of be strategic as far as which ones I wanted to focus on. If I need a little more time on one, or if I needed to just say, okay, this one, I'm as ready as I'm going to be, here we go. There was planning in advance. However, we had a couple of system errors. I remember for my econ, I was done and I was unable to turn it in, so I'm frantically emailing the professor, and they said, no problem, we've got the timestamp, you're good to go. So, I put myself a lot of unnecessary stress on that. If you're communicating with the staff, there's no problem. You can overcome any little thing like that.
We also have changed platforms since you were in the program, so it's a bit more robust.
Okay. I heard you say Blackboard. I didn't remember Blackboard. That makes sense.
Great. So, okay, thank you. So doing now a deeper dive into our two executive MBA programs. On the left, we have the traditional executive MBA. They call it traditional because for most people, it seems more traditional to come to the same campus for each of the residencies, and that is indeed the case. After launch week, you'll come back to West Lafayette 5 times for 1 or 2 weeks each time, and then there's a 2-week residency abroad. What's neat with that approach is that the cohort gets to choose where they want to go across a range of options. Almost every other program in the world with an EMBA program, they're going to tell you where you're going to have to go. In Peter's case, they went to Brazil and Chile. The year before, we had done Europe, and the year after, we did Europe. So it seems though we go back and forth between Europe and South America, depending on people's interests. In fact, we were there 4 months ago as well, and but 2019 shows that. Then the other bonus, as I like to call it, is that unique to the Purdue Executive MBA program, we have workshop-style immersion electives where, one, we survey the students for topics of interest. Based on that area of interest or areas of interest, the students rank order topics, and then based on that, we split the cohort into subgroups of 2 or 3, and it allows you to do a deeper dive on that particular subject. It may be 8 of you in a class with the professor, and so that more one-to-one interaction can really give that opportunity to talk through the curriculum. I know it's been a while since you graduated. Do you remember any of your immersion lectures?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I took game theory, and I really, really enjoyed game theory. I think that's a really great skill for someone who's interested in higher level management as well as national security implications. So for me, that was a really great class.
And what we do is we have a range of different types of the immersion electives, some more quantitative focused, some more functional focused, such as social media, and then some more what I'll call management skills, such as managing teams or presentation and speaking skills. So then in our Global Executive MBA, there we have 5 residencies. Each one is 2 weeks long because we go to a different country or pair of countries, and here we have those listed. The critical point of differentiation is that we have a fair amount of cultural and business immersion. So as we go to these countries, you're meeting with top management of different enterprises to understand their challenges, their opportunities, and see, will that transfer over to your own situation. And then we do different cultural immersion, be it off-site dinners, city tours, to give you that feel for what the country is like, because call it, website news or other newspapers don't always have the time to capture the reality of the countries that we're in. And here as well, you earn 2 MBA degrees, one from Purdue and one from our Dutch partner, TIAS at Tilburg University in the Netherlands. As indicated earlier, it is a general management MBA, and here are just some of those courses listed again. Extensive networking, because you're working with people not just in class, but outside of class as well. Back before the webinar, Peter and I were talking about people we're still in touch with from his cohort. We provide executive career coaching to help you look at where you want to be and how the program can contribute to that future success. And there'll be a slide on that here in a few. And then both have a capstone consulting project or out project, and then cohort-based electives where the whole cohort will take that. Do you remember what capstone consulting project you had? Again, it's been a couple years back.
We had the widget that for medical, the medical widget.
Okay. And so the idea is by helping this external client, they may not be in your subject matter expertise, but by analyzing a challenge for another company, it can give you insights into your own area of work. So I see one question that has come in. So what about the weekly schedule or class schedule? Is this online? So we'll have a slide coming up here in a few minutes that does a deeper dive on what a weekly schedule on campus would look like. And so we'll have that here in a moment, and then we'll see what other questions that may provide. So again, thank you for that question. So here's a typical timeline for the Executive MBA class. It's starting this September, and we still have seats available. So again, we have that launch week here at Purdue University. First 2 residencies are 2 weeks each, and then it drops residencies 3, 4, and 5 are 1 week each, and then the international trip as we talked about. In terms of workload, what I share with individuals is they should be planning for the first 2 residencies about 25 hours per week. It is more front-loaded in terms of credit load, and then it drops to around 15, 17 hours per week after that. Would you say that's a fair number?
I think that's very fair, yes.
And so certainly people feel a lot better after Module 2 with the drop in the work. And then looking at some of the criteria that individuals have indicated are of importance to them. So one, of course, is going to be affordability. So we have that presented on an inverted scale on the bottom, higher numbers indicating more affordable. So Purdue does quite well in that area. Alumni network, Purdue, as we indicated, about 500,000 people. So it is that in Purdue's case in particular, a global network that you'll have access to. The size of the bubble is the number of electives. And so Purdue not only has a large number of electives, but it's worth emphasizing that only our executive MBA students are in those electives. We're not combining you with the weekend or the on-campus tier MBA program. Since that peer-to-peer learning is so critical, that it's a different philosophy in terms of what we have. And then the shading indicating that we have a residency format, and it is quite rare, but we keep hearing from our students, it's a great way to learn. When you are on campus for multiple days at a time, you can shift your attention to what's going on. And then in looking at our Global Executive MBA program, so it's an alliance of 6 schools from around the world. We have Purdue University, of course. We have TS in the Netherlands, Tianjin University in China, FGV Abate in Rio, Politecnico di Milano in Italy, and ISM in Lithuania. And while these may not be household names in the U.S., you'd agree with that, I think.
Right. Yes.
Not dinner conversation. But in their countries, their respective countries, and their regions, they are quite well known. For example, Politecnico di Milano, the leading engineering and technology university of Italy. We have Tianjin University, oldest modern university in China. We have FGV Abate in Brazil. Everyone knows that university. So they're all bringing not just that name recognition, but the understanding that they bring to the students in the program, the connections with companies, with alumni. And so by going to these countries, it's not a tourist trip, not at all, but you do truly come away having an understanding of those countries and their economies. Then looking at the timeline for the Global Executive MBA, that program begins every March. And then, as I indicated, each residency is 2 weeks long. The first 2 residencies, we go to Europe, to 3 different European Union countries to get a bit of a triangulation of understanding the Netherlands, Italy, Lithuania, countries where they're small enough to get to know the country, but large enough to understand their impact on the EU and beyond, and how each of their engines of growth are different, be it the family-owned businesses in Italy, in the Netherlands, more technology and global expansion for many, many years. Lithuania, as a recent member, transitioning from the Soviet system into a free market and building so much on its human capital. It gives you those insights of the challenges, and some of those challenges will parallel your own organization. We then go to South America, again, taking people further out of their comfort zone and seeing both Brazil and Chile. Now, those were your countries as well, though you weren't in the Global MBA program. But Kevin, if you recall, how similar or different were those 2 countries?
Oh, it was really interesting to see the, at least formally controlled economy of Brazil, mercantile and very focused internally versus a very open economics oriented economy of Chile. Seeing the focus on mining and natural resources, and then Brazil, where their focus is on expanding their technology internally and things like that. But it is opening, it's changing. If you are familiar with Brazilian politics, we were down there at the kickoff of Operation Car Wash.
Right.
So they were really starting to do some big investigations on very big figures and shaking up, the governance of the country and the economy likewise. And it's interesting being there at the beginning of that and now seeing how that's falling out internationally now.
So I think it was like 3 days before we arrived.
That's right.
And that's what everyone was talking about.
That's right.
Every guest speaker at least referred to that. And so you get a feel that, again, just reading the headlines here in the U.S., you wouldn't have gotten that, how much on the day-to-day aspect people are talking about that. Residency 4, we come to West Lafayette, so we just had our group in last month. And then we end by going to China, to Tianjin University. We also go to Shanghai and Beijing, again, 3 cities to give you that broader understanding. And then we have our 2 graduations at Purdue and then at our Dutch partner, TIAS. So here, addressing that question earlier, what a typical week would look like on campus. So we always have breakfast and lunch on instruction days, 2 classes in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, each one 90 minutes long. And we'll typically have a different topic between the morning and the afternoon to give you a bit of what I call mental variety. So it's not all the same topic for the whole day. You'll see that we have breaks in the morning and the afternoon in addition to the lunch break. Since I'd say 90% of our students are expected to have some contact with their company while they're even in residency. So while you're immersed in the learning, you're not shut away from your managers. And that's important because not all companies want to give up their employees for 1 or 2 weeks at a time. So you still have that opportunity to have a connection. We try to have a company visit that corresponds to one of the topics going on that week. So operations and Burlington Amazon Distribution Center is a good connection of topics. And then we'll, within the program, organize some group dinners or evening events. It could be, as I said, a basketball game. The free evening just means we didn't organize something, but I'm sure Peter can attest they're not truly free. There may be homework or projects that you're working on.
Or even the group get together.
Or group get together. So there's a fair amount of that interaction going on. And everyone stays in the same hotel. I'll emphasize that. Even those that live in West Lafayette are not going home, but again, that cohort integration is a critical part of our DNA so that you truly get to know everyone. So hopefully that covers what a typical week and some of the workload involved in the program. And one thing I'll just mention on that previous slide, be it here in West Lafayette or be it in one of our international residencies, that's the general structure that we're following. So be it Milan, Shanghai, or Indiana, it is that general structure. So that gives some predictability in terms of how a week will look like. We're looking at 4 criteria related to the Global Executive MBA program. So again, we see Purdue, large alumni network, global brand, quite affordable. We go to more countries than any other program as well, and hopefully it's come across that you truly do leave having that understanding of what the countries are like, the economies are like. And then in terms of shading, the yellow indicating the residency format. So on the Global Executive MBA, you are more likely to see a residency format than you would in a traditional executive MBA program. So looking at program tuition, so our tuition is meant to be all-inclusive so that people aren't being nickel and dime for additional things that they go through the program. And people say that is quite convenient. I'm sure that reduces some of the bureaucratic things that you have to worry about.
Absolutely.
And so the tuition, fees, all course materials, housing, as I said, everyone stays at the same location. Most of the meals, the transportation once you're on campus. Now that campus may be Milan or maybe West Lafayette, but you have to get to and from campus yourself. And then social events, career services, all that provided, again, as a way to support you in your learning process. The tuition is the same for both programs, $85,000, split into 5 payments, and those payments cover multiple calendar years. I know some companies, they do reimbursement on a calendar year basis, so that's a benefit for you as well in terms of getting company support. So we talk about benefits to the firms because you cannot do this program without your company or your organization knowing about it. You can imagine people ask, why is Peter leaving again? A weekend or the evening, you can kind of make it fit in what you're doing. And that's part of the, I think, drawback to those formats is if you just kind of squeeze it in with everything else going on, you don't truly adjust your focus for that time period. Whereas here, you have to adjust your focus. I mean, you can't not. And so the benefits to the firms, and you should be thinking about these as you talk to your managers, one are the 48 credits that you gain to become a general manager, the fact that you can already start using after each residency knowledge that you've gained from being in the program. Surveys indicate that our alumni truly are able to help the companies as well. And after graduation, we continue to have activities. We do continuing education webinars, back to school events here on campus. You can have us sponsor or have us do an active learning project, that consulting project at your company as well. One of Peter's cohort members is actually a sponsor. He's become CEO since graduation. Yes. We'll just call him out as Mike. And the fact that now he can have a later cohort be working with him. And these are just within exec ed. Purdue has different events around the nation, around the world as well to again, keep that family, that Boilermaker family interacting. And then the last one I'll talk about, but I'll have Peter comment on as well. So people come in thinking they're going to meet new people and networking. So that's all understood. What I observe is that because you're together for the 1 or 2 weeks at a time, the strength of those ties is much stronger than if you saw people every other weekend just for a Saturday. So how was it for you? Were you surprised at the strength of ties, and what was that experience like?
I don't think I had any idea what I was getting myself into with that kind of networking. I kind of assumed that I would meet people, that if we had some similar interests, I might make a couple of friends. But, you know, folks especially that I was in a group with, when it's like, okay, we don't have any idea how to do this right now. We need to all learn about how to do this and then figure out a solution. And we need to know, you know, who we can count on to get things done. Really, you got to know people pretty quick. And so I felt like, you know, that experience, that shared experience through the group work really drew me closer to people that I probably, if I was just sat in a lecture hall with them one weekend a month or, you know, every weekend and then rushed home afterwards, no way I'd have that relationship. Sure. And then the social side of it, right, when we're all here and we're all working downstairs or, you know, we spill out into a pizza place or a bar afterwards, it's like, I'm here, I'm gonna hang out with them. So it was really a you know, baptism by fire is the way I described the first residency, but each module was like that, to where we just got to know the people we were working with. And some of the times you work with them again, you're like, all right, I know so-and-so already, and they know so-and-so from the next module, and so we can kind of compare notes and already build on that. So we're not starting from ground one. There's some overlap of people and network going on, and that can continue on out into the you know, workplace, where if you know, I meet someone who's a Purdue grad and they say, hey, you know, I really want to get into this industry, or I have a question about this, I wouldn't have a problem at all calling up one of the folks from our cohort saying, hey, you know, hey, Mike, I've got somebody who's interested in your field, and that would at least be a foot in the door that the Purdue network can really give a leg up to.
In fact, you've been talking with one of our global MBA
alumni
recently in Indianapolis as well. So the networking isn't just your cohort. Certainly that's the most obvious one, but it does cut across different cohorts. We in our Executive MBA, we recently did a Top Golf event in Indianapolis as well. We had 50 alumni participating. So again, different ways that we try to bring people together to learn and form those ties across cohorts. Of course, people are interested in their own career impact as well. So in this area, we're helping people think about where they want to be 2 years after graduation. That tends to be the point at which people are going to experience a transition within their career. And so we want you to focus on the functional area you'd like to be in, the industry, geography, and what role you'd like to have. And so by working with an executive career coach, you help define that endpoint 2 years after graduation, develop a plan, and then work on that execution of the plan. And then what we're seeing from different surveys of our alumni is that it is helping. 80% of our alums within 2 years of graduation have been promoted or grown their own company. That doesn't even capture the people promoted during their time in the program, the transitions that they experience. Salary impact 30 to 45% within 1 year of graduation. And then on the alumni, number 111 world ranking in terms of salary impact. So we're seeing it not just in the stories that we hear, but also the data that we're getting from the surveys. But let's do a deeper dive because you had multiple transitions. And I want to talk about it because often people are afraid they don't have the time, or they think their life has to be put on hold. And so you had call it family transition, work transition. So let's talk about the work part. At graduation, you were working differently than when you started. So talk us through that transition and what it meant.
Okay, yeah. So leaving the military for me, it was, you know, I came out of ROTC and went straight into the Navy. So the Navy was what I knew. I knew I was going to transition out, so I used the Purdue program to transition. So during the program, I actually used the Purdue network in order to find a job. I worked for a lithium-ion battery company immediately after leaving the Navy. And so that was a big transition. It was a global company, so I was using a lot of the skills, a lot of the same things that I learned in this program, as far as I can schedule things that are for the time zone of people I'm working with, or wait, now we're working over 4 time zones. I better really find a good time for that, and in the communication aspect. That was an abrupt change, though, going from being in the military, which is, very structured, to, okay, I've got all the latitude I need to make this work and get this project and programs going. So I worked as a program manager there. Meanwhile, while I was changing jobs, my wife and I were expecting twins. So the girls were set to arrive in January. However, during our module year at Purdue in October, they came prematurely. So I was thrust into changing jobs and becoming a father the same month during the residency here at Purdue. So I have to say that I went through some pretty drastic changes in life all at the same time while doing this program. We were also building a house and moving to Indiana. And I have to say that even with that tornado going on around me, the fact that I had already established my rhythm in the program, I was able to keep going, and I had already made the friends and the relationships with my cohort that I could say, guys, look, I'm underwater right now. I'm going to have to move this call, or I'm going to have to do this. Or I had to, send Aldas an email saying, hey, the girls are being born today. I'm going to be back as soon as I can. So I was there for the birth, and then I was back for the etiquette lesson we had that night with the president's butler. Right. So it was a very supportive program, and I'd say that I would never have expected that all to happen at the same time, but it did. And I was able to get through it because the program is that versatile and it's that design that, working professionals can do this and do this. And if you just talk to somebody else and hear that, then you say, oh, actually, maybe I can do this because I have already got my job going and this is my next step.
So what I find interesting is how much happened. Certainly some planned, some not, certainly in terms of timing. And often I'll tell people when they're debating if they should start or not, that there's no perfect time to start in the MBA program. There are bad times to start, but there's never going to be a perfect time. And so some of that is balancing out what are the competing demands. What I have learned as well, I'll share, are those that delay start because they think their workload will drop at work a year from now. That has never been the case. So those that do join a year later, they say, well, actually last year would have been better. So that's one thing to be balancing out these competing demands, but knowing life will continue when you're in the program. And again, as you said, the flexibility, the nimbleness of the program adjusts to the things that may happen in your life.
Judge Kirsch had a good analogy that it's like the books on a bookshelf. You sometimes just have to push that extra book into the bookshelf and everything kind of moves over.
Sure.
And when you remove it, it kind of fills back out.
Financing is also a critical decision. So what we find is that 85% of our students do receive some company support when they're in the program. And we have a toolkit and another document called the Big Ask that we can share with any of you that can help you coordinate those discussions. And we encourage you to have those discussions as early as possible to make sure your company is aware of what your plans are and that they can provide that support, be it for time away and or actual financing of the tuition. If there's any questions that your HR person, your direct supervisor may have, we can help address those questions as well. And then on the personal side, a range of options. So of course, 9/11 DI bill in some cases, of course. Then people have loans, savings, and then we do provide some scholarship support. And so historically, what we see is that between company support, scholarship, savings, and loans, people are able to create their own financial package, if you will, financial plan to cover the cost of the program. And as a land grant, public university, our goal is to make education affordable. There's programs out there 2.5 times our price, but we think having something that's closer or to affordability is going to be critical for people. If financial aid is of importance to you, Kirsten Reynolds in our Purdue's financial aid office is the best person to contact. And there you have her email, and she can guide you through that particular process. In terms of navigating the path for next steps, submit your resume with us for review and to get an evaluation of fit, and then also about determination of a GMAT waiver. That can help you take those initial steps to see if this is the right program for you. If you're looking at other programs, we'll compare our 2 Purdue Executive MBA programs with up to 3 others of your choice, and then we'll give you data on 25 different characteristics that students have said are of importance to them. And so you can use that Excel file either to add data to it, or even as you talk with your company management, they'll understand the trade-offs and the benefits of being in one of the Purdue Executive MBA programs. As we said, and we keep emphasizing, have those discussions. About when did you start talking with your immediate commander and others that would be impacted by wanting to join a program?
I probably started talking about this program in the spring of 2014.
Okay.
Because I was looking at several different options.
Years out,
Yeah. And so I got the approvals about 9 months out.
So it's a different range. We find for some people their EMBA journey can be as long as 6-7 years. And for some it may be 4 weeks out, depending on when those approvals come in. And so we try to work with each person individually to make it right for them. We have these monthly webinars where you can learn more. We always have an alum joining. And then we also encourage you, if your schedule and locality permits, come visit us on campus, sit in on a class, learn more about the program, and also have lunch with current executive MBA students. We have dates in August, October, November. Additionally, if you're not able to come physically to campus, then we can set up a virtual visit where you're still able to connect with some of our students, learn about the program, and then have a live access, live streaming to the class that's taking place. The application is fairly straightforward online, and it was online when you joined as well. A resume, 3 required essays plus the optional scholarship essay, 2 references, transcripts, and an interview. Again, the interview may be in person, or maybe WebEx or Skype. I think we do WebEx or Skype with you as well, since you're a bit distant at that time. And we use a rolling admissions process, so within a week of you submitting your application, you'd be contacted for the interview, and then within a week of the interview, a decision is rendered by our admissions committee along with the scholarship decision soon after that. If you're admitted, I like to say get ready to be challenged. Peter has hopefully not scared people away. One thing we have changed since Peter joined, we've shifted 1 class out of the first module. So it used to be 5 classes, now it's going to be 4. We shifted that, yeah. So we think it'll be slightly more balanced. Since the first module, if people haven't been in school for 10 years, potentially, it just helps that learning curve, if you will, is a bit smoother. And here we have the deadlines. The next deadline for the traditional EMBA for this fall is August 1st. We still are accepting applications, and we do still have scholarship support available. And then program launch here on campus September 9th. And then for our global executive MBA program, December and January for the initial or early application deadlines, February 2nd for standard application, and then we start again this program March 22nd here on campus. So hopefully you found this useful overview of what we do. Last slide does capture that people do graduate, and they're smiling when they graduate. Not because it was easy, but because it was hard, and they know that they have earned the MBA degree that they're leaving Purdue with. So I know we've been getting some questions. Thank you for them. Certainly, if you have any more, feel free to share them. So I guess a question for you, Peter, as we're seeing if the audience had any. What was your thought process, or how did you choose what program would be the right fit for you?
Well, the big topics you've already discussed, whether it be the location, the name, the networking, and then the curriculum, I was actually struggling between, MBA or engineering management since my undergrad was engineering, and I decided that once I decided on MBA, it was a matter of, okay, so now what format? And the Exec MBA looked like it was much better fit for me as far as being on active duty still and wanted to transition into the civilian world. And again, the networking aspect of it and how can I find myself in a better job and an upward trajectory, and what can I afford? So those were all the big things.
Okay.
Once I settled on Purdue, it was a debate between the traditional, like you say, EMBA and the IMM. And the IMM was very appealing to me, but the time frame, the September start was better for me. So I kind of made a strategic, okay, I've got enough international experience with the Navy, so maybe the EMBA will give me more of a focus on with the electives. It can really round me out because, that's what I need to be focusing on is the civilian business. So it worked very well for me.
Okay, great. Now, I know for some people the Executive MBA program and post-program events, for some it's more of a journey, but for others they can connect particular decisions to courses. So are there any decisions or things that happen at work that you can connect to any of the curriculum? Or is it more of a journey where it's more evolutionary?
I would say some of the final capstone project, Mary's course, where we were working together doing a project for Cisco Systems, seeing the timeline on that and facing the realities of the resources and how we're going to allocate things like that. I thought that was a great introduction to what I ended up doing in the civilian sector. So that was really okay, here's the timeline, here's what we've got to work with, and here's what we've got to get to the customer. And that was it was a little bit different because in the military things can be a lot more spelled out for you, or at least in the military success.
Sure. If you were to do it over, what would you do different, if anything?
I probably would have gone on one of the extra trips, the EMBA trip to Paris I didn't go on.
So in addition to what we've talked about here today, there's also a study abroad 1-week trip that Peter is referring to, where you do join the other MBA program students. Paris seems to be the most frequently gone to city within that program. So
I mistakenly thought I'd have more time later. It's not real.
Take it when you can.
That's right. That's right.
That's what I say. So good deal. Well, I think we're through of the questions. So certainly, if people have questions afterwards, feel free to reach out to myself. I can connect you with Peter. He can answer questions as well. So we'll end with the last question. What advice would you give to people that are considering doing an executive MBA program?
So if you're already considering an EMBA, you made the decision that's the path you want to pursue, I would say, reach out and get as much information as possible, deciding where to go. Purdue was the best for me. It's not the best for everyone. That's why they have multiple programs. But I'd say reach out now and start making plans now, because like we said, you don't want to put off this for more time in the future. It's like putting off retirement savings. You never make that up. So right now, if you jump in with both feet, and it will pay off, because I've seen it happen with my team and with the fellow alumni network that I've been meeting from this organization.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you're doing well, and thank you for joining us today. Thank you, everyone, as well, for joining. And if you have any questions or we can help in any way, do feel free to reach out, and we'll help you navigate the path towards your EMBA as well. So with that, thank you, and I wish everyone a good rest of the day.